Okay. So this is all the framing in place, and now I show you the soffit. So what I need to know is, first of all, how long a piece I need here and what its dimensions are. And so first off, I'm just going to measure from the wall out to the face of the fly rafter, and I've got kind of a variation, it looks like, between, I don't know, like 5.5, there's 5 3/8. So about 5.5 there. I can make it a little bit narrow, and then there's less struggle. So this is a good place for less struggle. So I'm going to do 5 3/8. Then lengthwise, I want something that goes basically to here. But again, this is a spot actually that doesn't need to be perfect because it's going to get covered. And it goes up to the corner, or up to the peak here. So I need about 43.25 or so. So I will take some of this here. And I'm going to cut 43.25. Come back to you later. All right, so I'm going to rip this down to 5 3/8. All right. That way I could have gotten both pieces out of one. All right, so then here's the dealio. If we want this to meet up here in the corner in a nice and pleasing and snug way. And I think the sheet actually says, cut this at the pitch of the roof. I'm going to do this a little bit differently because this is how I do it. I'm actually going to cut this, I'm going to cut this maybe at the pitch of the roof, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to have the two pieces overlap each other. So let me start by cutting it at the pitch of the roof, which I think is about 35-degree angle, so it's an 8 to 12. And that's a bevel cut in this case. So here's the vision of how this works. You come in here, kind of like so. And you come in here, and you overlap, and you create a nice tight joint right there that no one could ever see in. I'm going to nail this little scrapple on here first. And I want to nail it so that kind of flush with the outside here of my fly rafter. That's the idea. So something like so. All right. And then it does have a little bit of a gap in the back, but that's okay. There's going to be multiple layers of siding and other things back here that cover that gap. So what's really important is getting that flush here in the front. Then my second piece can come in. I want to make those flush again with each other in the front. So nice and flush there. And close up that gap. So that's beautiful right there. Now, then I'll just kind of come down here and I'll make sure we're still flush. That'll work. Pretty good. Oh, I see. All right, I want to make sure it's flush down here too. All right. So, close observers might note that it actually seems that it's sticking out a bit past my fly rafter here. But it's flush with this piece, and the issue is this fly rafter is a little bit behind that one. So I set up based on this kind of one that was sticking out more, and I evened those up, and that's going to be all right. I'm going to put a piece of fascia on here, and the fact that this fly rafter is a little bit tweaked is not going to be noticeable after that. So I want to work towards making this edge here really flush with the most sticky outy bit of framing, because my next piece is going to want to close down any gap there. And again, gap back here is not so important. And that's nice and tight, just like you want it. Then there's this guy here, and I'm going to be putting a piece of 3/4 inch material there, so that's going to be just fine. That little gap will get closed. So that's kind of how your rake soffit looks. Now let's just look at your eave soffit. And the eave soffit comes here, and it's got a little, what I would call a dog leg. It's kind of an L-shaped piece. And I want to see how wide this is here at its widest bit. It's about 10 inches, maybe 9 15/16 there, and then, you know, that's gets a little changey there, but 10 inches is it. And so that is going to have to get cut around this little dog leg here. And so I can just hold my piece up here. I want to make sure it's nice and flush with the front of my my framing in there. I'm just going to mark where it intersects the wall, like so. I said I was going to do that to 10 inches. Bring this back here. I'm going to rip this to 10 inches, and then I'll make the dog leg. So let me do that. All right. All right, so I still got my mark there. And then I guess there's more than one way of doing this, but what I'll just do is measure this distance from face to the back here. And for reasons that are not really easily explicable to me, this is 6 3/8. I don't know, it's different than that one, but that's what it is. That would be tight. It's okay if I have a little bit of a gap back here, and so in the interest of not making my life miserable, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 6 1/8. So I'm going to take about 1/4 inch off of that measurement. This is important because this has to be flush with the outside of my framing. This and this all have to be flush with the outside of my framing, and here is not as important. So that's my dog leg. 6 1/8 here, and then it's going to get cut there. All right. Here's how I'm going to cut this. I want to recommend what you do is at least draw yourself what you're going to be subtracting, because sometimes dog legs get cut backwards. Right? Once in a while. All right, 6 1/8 is the measurement. All right, so this is how it sits. I have to go through this every time, otherwise I get confused too. This is how it's going to sit in the world. This is where I cut out. Therefore, if I cut from this direction and I cut exactly to my line, it's a round blade. It's going to overcut a little bit on the back side, but it's going to not be visible at all. So that's how I have to talk myself through the whole thing every time. I always put my pinky up here on the fence because it helps keep me positioned so I don't get close to the blade. That's just a little pro tip. Pro tip. All right. Then I can cut that bit out. I'd probably just do that with a jigsaw. And then you go here, like so. Flush in the front. Flush there. I have a little bit, this has a little bit of a sticky outy bit here, which I'm gonna come up with a way of dealing with that. And boom, done.